Okay, so in this video, we're going to look at the different areas of Logic. So we've created a new instrument here. Let's start off left to right. So we've got here the library. And as I talk through these, I'm also going to reference shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, and they are crucial for getting good at Logic, because the quicker you can get an idea down, the quicker you can get a rough sketch together or a recording, I find that the easier the idea comes together. So over time, it helps if you can have quite a quick workflow. So you'll see in the bottom of my screen, I will occasionally type something, and you'll see a little shortcut pop up here. And you can see my mouse is highlighted as well to make it easier. So that will be the same in all these videos. Okay, so we've created a new software instrument here. It comes here into this section, and it also comes up here. And with that, the library opens, and you can see this blue window around here. That shows which section is currently highlighted. So the library section, this is where all your sounds live, all of Logic's virtual instruments live. So you can see bass, drum kit, electronic drum kit, guitar, and all you have to do is click on one of these, and then you get a load of different types. Click on fingerstyle bass, and I've got a MIDI keyboard plugged in here. There you go, got a fingerstyle bass, and if I was to change it to a Stinger bass, you'll hear the tone is slightly different, and that is because of the different effects and things on this instrument. So we've got the library here, and you just click here, click here. If you need to go back, you can scroll with there. And to use the library, it's very simple. Just click anywhere and it will load up. Got a drum kit. You can search sounds at the top, guitar, acoustic guitar, loads up. I recommend when you install Logic, and if you didn't already, you should download the full content, because that will affect what instruments you have here. And really, you want to have everything that's available. In order to download the rest of Logic sounds, open up Logic, go to Logic Pro, Sound Library, and download all available sounds, and click there, and then follow the steps. Easy. Okay, so this is the library, and we can open and close that with Y. I'll quite often, once I've chosen my sound, I will close the library, so I've got a bit more real estate over here to work with. So I've closed my library now, and now we have this area, and this is called the inspector area, or more specifically, this is the channel strip, and this up here is inspector. Let's talk about the channel strip. What we've got here, we've got the acoustic guitar, and as you build up different instruments, for instance, we now put a piano on here. We've got piano on this channel here, and if we flick up, we're now on channel 1, and it will be a guitar sound. Here is a piano sound. So flicking between the two, and you'll notice that these change here. I'm just going to close the library again. So this window here will always correspond to what's selected up here. That's pretty crucial. And you've always got these two together. And this one here is a stereo out channel. This is your master channel. So anything you put on this channel, like audio effects, EQs, compressors, we'll talk about those more later. Anything you put on them, then anything on the acoustic guitar or the Bossendorfer grand piano, that will be affected by whatever is on this stereo out master channel. But we'll talk about that a bit more later. So acoustic guitar, and here are all the effects on the acoustic guitar on the channel strip. So you've got main one, volume. You've got a peak meter here, and that just shows you the level. Yeah, it shows you how much gain, how much volume, how loud it is. You want to aim at 0 dB as your default. Panning, so if you wanted to turn it to the left or to the right, that will position it out of one speaker or the other. Read here is referring to automation. We'll touch on that later. Stereo out, this is where you choose your output. You can change your output, but we're not going to worry about that just now. We'll leave it as stereo output. Here you've got things called send channels. So you can send the audio from one place to another. For instance, we've got it going to what's called a bus 1 and bus 3. And you just think of buses as another channel that can have different audio routed to them. Up here are the effects area. So let's just turn that off, There's 3 buttons on these effects. You've got the on and off switch here. You can bypass it. You can click on this bit in the middle and it will load up the effect. Currently we're looking at a channel EQ. And if you go to the far right of this, you've got a different selection of effects to use. So let's just start this blank for a second. Let's go remove all effect plugins. Up here you've got the instrument. So there's kind of little sections. There's an instrument section, then you've got audio effects, then you've got the sends. So if I was to change instrument to a synthesizer, it's now a nice synth. And yeah, this is where you change the input, if you like. You change the different virtual instrument. So for instance, if I open up the library again and I hit piano, that is going to open a sampler, and it's also loaded up different effects. Instruments that Logic has already ready for you to use also come with a load of different effects already on them: tape delay, compressor, channel EQ. So yeah, here you change the instrument, as we said, retro synth. There's so many great things to choose from in Logic 10. Up here you've got MIDI effects, so you can add any effect that affects just the MIDI. So you can add like an arpeggiator. So if you played a chord, it would then arpeggiate that chord for you. Okay, so I should elaborate on that a little bit. In Logic, there are 2 types of track. There are audio tracks and there are MIDI tracks. Audio is anything that's been recorded or anything you want to record: a guitar, a vocal, a bass. It can be a sample. And then you've got MIDI, which is technically data. It's note information. It contains information about how long you pressed the note, which note you pressed, how hard you pressed it. And you can transform this very easily. So it just takes the data, but then you can have a different instrument playing the data. So you'll notice the tracks are a little bit different. So audio is here. It's just got audio effects, sends, stereo out. But if you go on this instrument channel, which is a virtual instrument or a MIDI channel, it's got things like MIDI effects. So those effects will be MIDI effects. Instrument, you can change a different instrument. So that's the key difference, really. Think audio, real recordings. Think MIDI, virtual instruments, data. Up here is just a quick way to get to your EQ. EQ is going to be one of the effects you use the most in the end, so you'll get very familiar with it, and hence why it's got a big EQ section all to itself. Double click on that, and there you go. You get different bands, and you can increase a particular frequency or decrease it. We will talk a lot more about EQ later on. Setting up here you can change the channel strip setting. You can save and copy, and so if you make a nice chain of effects for your piano, you get it sounding really good, you can go settings, save channel strip setting as, and you could type in piano, for instance. So yeah, this is the channel strip. This is very important. You'll become very familiar with this over time. Up here we've got inspector region. A bit more information. You can change MIDI channels. I wouldn't worry too much about this, but you can transpose, have a global transpose on, like boost something up an octave or down an octave. You can have fixed velocity. There's a few different things you can do in here, and this will change. This is kind of interactive depending on what channel type you're looking at. And up here you've got another drop down box, and you can do certain things to the MIDI, like loop it or quantize it, transpose it, change the velocity, and you've got more, and you've got a few more other little things you can tweak, and that will affect the MIDI. but we don't need to worry about that for now. So this area here, channel strip, done. Let's move on to now the arrange page, and you can cycle between these pages by hitting tab as well. So see the blue line is now around here, so we're looking at and controlling this area. This is called the arrange window, or the main window it's just called, but arrange page I like to call it. And here we've got our 2 channels that we've created so far. And I'm going to go and close my library again. So arrange page, and this is where you're going to arrange all your regions. And a region is what you get once you've created an area with a virtual instrument MIDI data, or an audio track with audio data in it. So this is your timeline across the top here. And as you hit space or play with the transport up here, you get the timeline, the time marker moving across the screen. And to stop it, you can either hit it there, or you can hit space. Space starts and stops. This is like crucial to know, in my opinion. And then enter sends it back to the beginning of the song. Very simple. If I click on here, you'll see these 3 buttons. You've got record. So if you hit R, or you can go up here, but it's a lot easier to hit R. This will give you a countdown, and then hit key, hit space to finish the recording. And there you've got a little bit of audio. And if I go back to the beginning by hitting enter, and then I hit space, we have what I just recorded. And as you can see, I didn't record it at the start of bar 1, I was a bit late. So I'm going to get rid of this region, and these are called regions. Anything like this, any of these little boxes, and you see it's got the name Grand Piano there. And if you hit backspace, there you go, that gets rid of it. So that's the record button. Here you've got solo. So when you're playing something, this is going to just solo this one channel, because after a while you'll have maybe 5 to 10 to 20 channels down here, and you might just want to hear how one sounds on its own. So you hit solo, S for solo, and with that light on, it means it will only play the grand piano if you had other parts. And mute is similar, but it will mute this one, so you won't hear this one, but you'd hear all the rest. This dial here is the same as this here. It's the volume fader, and you can see it's got a decibel reading, and it also affects it over here. And here the pan is duplicated as well, so this is the one that turns it to the right or all the way to the left, between -64 and +63, and in the middle is 0. So yes, that's this section here. Let's talk a bit more about some of these different icons at the top that you'll want to know about. Here we have got the library, which we open and close with Y. Here we have the inspector, which is this area, total area. I tend to always have this open, to be honest, and this arranged. This is my default. So we've got quick help, and turn this on. It will give you a little dialog box that explains everything you hover over. I'm going to turn it off for now, but I recommend you turning it on. Here you've got the toolbar. You can add this in and you get a load of different other options. I personally don't tend to use that very much. You can zoom here, you can add colors, you can split the regions in different ways. You can do repeat notes, and you can zoom in on the tracks like that. I don't use the toolbar, I just prefer having a cleaner workspace. Okay, so smart controls, basically these correspond to certain key controls in whichever instrument you have selected. Not all of them have smart controls, but we do have them for retro synth in here. So if we were to play something, so for instance, yeah, I just moved the delay. And you can, as you move further along, you can automate these, so you can have, say, the delay going up over time. It's just an easier way to control some of the main aspects of the synth. It's another thing I don't use too often, but you by all means can. Here we've got the mixer window, so this will become very important to you. I like to open and close this with the X key. So X opens, close, open. And here you've basically got all the channels you've created. So you've got the first one, the Yamaha, and then you've got the second one, acoustic guitar. And this is just supposed to replicate like a hardware mixer that you would find, like a mixing console. So yeah, we've got the channel 1, channel 2, and then these are the bus channels we mentioned earlier. You've got your stereo out and master as well. So keep these at 0 dBs. And yeah, if you want to bring the volumes, mix your record a bit, you'll play with these and get them all leveled up however you want your music to sound. And you can play around with what you want to see in your mixer. You can add in all tracks, or yeah, have it on single. And that is up here with this one. And here you have the editors, which you can open with E. If you hover over anything, it will tell you the shortcut as well, Mixer, X, Smart Controls, B. So we can open up the editors window here. We've got Piano Roll, which is probably the main one we're going to use. You can cycle through the different editors. You've got Score, which is just notation. Got Step Sequencer, which allows you to add crazy notes to your MIDI and create some cool patterns, particularly if you're doing like electronic music. And Smart Tempo allows you to play with the tempo of things with audio, but we'll come to that later on. So Piano Roll, one you'll most use. You've got keys up and down the left and right, and when you record something in, it will show the notes that you've played, the MIDI notes, and you can edit these, edit the velocity, make them louder, quieter with this slider here. And you can do other things like quantize, which will put it in time, which is really handy. So you can snap it to a quarter note, and that's what it did there, it moved it. So that is the Piano Roll, very basic overview. Okay, so the transport. You've got right and left, move the playhead left and right, or fast forward and rewind. You can also do that with the full stop and the comma, or the less than and greater than keys. Got this one here, which is cycle. So this will turn on this yellow marker here, and you can change the cycle, toggling it on and off with C, and that will basically play back wherever this is selected over. So by default it's here, but you can click on it when this hand comes up and move it to bars 5 and 9, or you can drag it out like this, and this way too, and then turn it off again by either clicking here or hitting C. This area is your display, so as I move this playhead, it will show you which bar and which beat you're on. Very important to know here is the tempo. So currently by default it sets to 120, and this is going to change depending on what you're working on. If you're working just on MIDI, you can change stuff very easily, just like drag it as you go up and down. If you're working with audio, it's a bit more difficult to change the tempo once you start, so you probably want to set this pretty early on in your project. Here shows the time signature. You can click on that to change it. Most people write in 4/4, but if you do write in 12/8 or 3/4, then you have that option, and you can do custom ones as well. Here says the key. You don't have to ever change this, so don't worry, but it will allow you to transpose stuff quite easily if you're in C major and then you say, oh no, I want to be in E major, and it will change key for you, but I just leave it as C major. Here you have a few other record options, but I don't bother. This one is replace, so this will replace an audio region. You select it and it will fill the gap, so if you do a recording and you don't like it, you click that and it will go on, and then you select your region and then record over it. This one allows you to tune things, and this one here is solo, and it will select all the solo elements and just hear them. So for recording, this is on, it gives you 1, 2, 3, 4 beats before it starts recording, which is very handy. And here's your metronome we discussed. You can turn on and off with K. Here you have a master volume gain. Never touch this. There's no reason to touch this, so just leave it on 0 dB. Up here we have events, so anytime you have some MIDI notes, it will be a list down here. Probably don't need to get into that too much right now. And any markers, which you might put a label up here that says introduction, verse, chorus, and then it will show these here. Any tempo changes, if you do decide to change tempo halfway through, they'll be logged here. And the same for time signatures. So this is your events, and it can be open and controlled with D. Here we've got your notes. If you want to add in a note, you can write something in here, hit edit and hit done. And you can write any notes. Say if you're recording something and you did 3 vocal takes and you wanted to remember for later vocal take 2 was the best vocal take, then you could write that in here, or any other notes like piano could be better, I don't know, anything. And the same, you can do it on a track by track basis or on a project basis. So that's your notes. Here you have your loops, which are quite cool. It's great if you just want to get started. You can click on these. You can see an audio going here. And if you drag it in, and the green ones are MIDI regions, and these ones are audio regions. And you can have different filters up the top here. You can filter by genre or descriptors, or by instrument or drums, and this will filter your drums. It's pretty cool. And you just click it again to unfilter it. You can have it down the bottom. You've got volume, and play. And you can also choose keys as well for different keys, filter by keys, which is handy. Okay, that's loops, and yeah, you just click on any of them, you find the one you want, and you drag it in. So you could make a whole composition out of different loops. When you are working with loops, you might want to know the L key creates an infinite loop of that, so it will keep on going. And that one stopped because we didn't have it on infinite loop, but if you put loop on, or you could do that at the top. You click and drag, create a cycle, and you hit L again and it loops or cuts the loop. If you wait for the marker to change to this will cut where you want it to, or you can drag it out from here like that, and that will decide how long the loop goes on for. So that is loops, and here is media. This is initially showing the different files you have, a little bit of information about them, the length, BPM, info, the name, and what the main reason for coming in here really, in my opinion, is going to all files, and then you can choose any of your own samples. So if I went to my home, my desktop, sorry, up here, go to Kingston, and then my samples are all on an external hard drive. So if I then wanted to bring in, I don't know, little sound effects, drag and drop them in. Wonderful, pure art. Yeah, so this is where you will bring in any external audio into your project from. So this is quite handy to know. And F toggles this open and out. So these are all your main areas. Your key ones are the arrange window, obviously, the inspector or channel strip area, your library with Y, and then your mixer with X. And those are probably the 4 most common areas that you'll use in Logic. The only other one might be the piano roll, which you can open with P, and that is an overview of the areas. There's obviously a few more, and if you go up to window up the top here, you can find some of them. You can open the audio track editor, for instance. So if we had an audio file that we were looking at, let's do that here. Double click on it and you get it down in this window, or you can open it in a fresh window. Open audio editor, and then you have it here and you can see the audio file and select it. Okay, so that's an overview of the different areas in Logic, the main windows. I hope this was helpful, and take it easy, keep on trucking. Okay, so that was an overview of all the different areas in Logic. You should now be familiar with the key sections that you need to know about. You've got the Arrange page, which is the main window. You've got the Inspector, where you can see the channel strips. And you've got the Library. You've also got the Mixer. You've got the Browser, which contains the area to find your loops and samples. So I would encourage you after this lesson to just open up Logic, have a play around, look at all the different areas, try to drag in some loops, try to drag in some samples, get a feel for creating new tracks, audio and MIDI, and yeah, just experiment really. I hope you found this lesson informative, and I'll see you on the next one.